Hello again, and welcome to.
Smooth.
Welcome to that, whatever that is.
Why did I agree to come back here?
I don't know, man.
I got a thing.
Sucker for punishment.
Oh
my God! Here, hold on.
Hang on, I'm gonna start us over, folks.
We'll start again.
Cancel the show.
We're gonna go over.
Take this offline and we'll start again. Okay. Hello again, and welcome to episode 171 of SDGC for Thursday, December 5th. If you're not aware, Super Deformed Games Cast meets right here each and every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Fuck it, we're live. I can't do this.
Oh my God, Steve.
It's fine. I empathize with Steve completely. It's fine. We deserve this anyway. It's all right. How's everybody doing today?
Oh, I have rum and coke in my nose.
I was doing good, but I'm a little questionable after whatever that was.
I had I don't know, I got something caught in my throat the first time, and after that I just completely lost my fucking bearing. So yeah. I'm done. Steve Spohn, the CEO or the COO of AbleGamers. Steve, this is your third time on the podcast now, right?
I have lost count. I lost part of my soul the first time, and then I think I lost part of my pants the second. I don't know. So.
Well, hold on. Wait. I was under the impression the last time you were on, you were not wearing pants.
That is true. You did say that.
We have no way to confirm.
No, I said streamers don't wear pants. I didn't confirm whether I'm a streamer or not. So,
Sneaky.
Aren't you a streamer though? You're a streamer.
Don't tell Twitch that. They don't need to know.
I don't even know.
I mean, I may or may not be wearing pants myself. Who knows? I mean,
God, I hope so.
It's a guessing game. It's all a guessing game.
I never wear pants.
Unless you pay for the premium Snapchat, and then you know if John is wearing pants.
Whether or not I have pants, that's a subs only thing that we'll do after the show. Okay, right.
I just want you to know if my mic ever does this, it's because I'm standing up and I'm not wearing pants.
That's really disturbing.
I've learned a lot of information about which people in chat are wearing pants and which are not that I didn't have before, and I don't know if I wanted.
Everybody in chat, if you're wearing pants, if everybody in chat, if you're wearing pants and pants, spam the Saki emote. If you're wearing pants, and if not, or should I say, if you're not wearing pants? If you're not wearing pants, spam the Saki.
Spam the Saki emote and make people guess.
Yep, exactly.
Gosh.
Oh, hey, Candace. Candace, hi. How you doing, Candace? I hope you're doing okay. Candace just had a move, and Candace is a very good friend of mine. Candace is awesome. All right, guys, we got a lot to talk about. Steve, first and foremost, you are now one of our most recurring guests on this podcast. I
what a
apologize
mistake.
for that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Steve.
I used to have a reputation. I don't know what happened.
Why is everyone so mean? We have a nice podcast.
We do have a nice podcast.
Oh no, you're amazing, but John scares me. So
yeah,
You
so
can't say no to him.
we even out to just an average at that point.
Yeah.
So here's my thing, right? We got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about what we've been playing. We're going to talk about what we have. I've been playing video games too, Steve. I mentioned that.
See,
I have.
That's why we're friends, because we play games.
As a games journalist, I hate video games.
Oh,
wait.
Okay.
And I'm really trying to destroy them.
Damn.
Is that the only reason we're friends?
That and your yellow hat, honestly. I mean the biceps too, honestly. So
everybody loves my biceps. I'm not gonna. I mean, let's just be honest about that, right? Everybody loves my muscular biceps.
What did I come up with the other day? Unicorn smell or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. It smells of a unicorn. I smell of unicorn and leather or something like that. Yeah, which is 100% true. If you've ever been within my general presence, you know that. So we're gonna talk about what we've been playing. We're going to talk about Reb is like it's already off the rails. We're going to talk about our favorite PlayStation memories. We're going to talk about the Riot Games settlement, and we've got a ton of questions from people on Twitter that we are going to answer with Steve here. And we are also, if we have time, we're also happy to take questions from the chat as well. I see a lot of people in chat actually that I don't recognize, which is awesome. We're so happy you're all here. Thank you for coming to hang out with us tonight, and I hope everybody has a great time. Reb, since Zach is not here tonight to keep us in line, do you want to take that job?
I have no idea who those weirdos in chat could be at all.
I don't know either.
I could be
Reb?
You
timekeeper
know,
if need
okay.
be. Okay.
Okay,
There we go.
Reb's in charge tonight. Reb, go.
Go what?
Wow.
What am I doing? What
Let's
are you
talk-
playing, John? John, what video game are you playing right now?
Well, why don't we do our
So
guest first?
panicked.
I'll do it, Reb. I'll do it. Steve, what have you been playing, man? What have you been
You're
playing?
so mean to me.
Wow.
Reb, I just
Wow.
You're making
I'm
Reb
sorry,
cry.
man. I'm
Got
sorry,
promoted
Reb.
and demoted in the same 30 seconds. That was
I
impressive.
can't-
yeah.
I was trying to log into Twitch chat. It's not letting me log
It's like you
in.
got
I
an
can't-
administration
I can't talk
job
to
you
all
went
these
through
nice
so quick.
people. I got hired and fired in about 5 seconds.
Everybody
Reb-
in chat say nice things to Reb. So
I
she-
can't reply to them.
Well, right
Anyway.
now,
I love
Reb.
when you yell at Job. That's my favorite part.
Everybody-
I will say something nice to Reb.
Okay.
I
Is it about
hope,
Animal Crossing?
I hope Animal Crossing is great,
Thank you.
and I
that's so
hope you
nice.
love it.
I will. Thank you.
I hope there's a lot of
Okay.
animals that cross things. Yeah,
there's a lot. There,
Well, Steve, I
that's
take
true.
it you're not playing Animal Crossing.
I'm not. No.
What are you playing, Steve?
You know, I'm playing my old favorites of a lot of the Rocket Leagues. Fortnite's got me back again. I'm so sorry. You just lost a lot of subs when I said that.
No, I'm playing Fortnite too.
Yay! We should totally play.
We actually
Um,
should, yes.
Do it. I just picked up the recent Phoenix Point, which is the XCOM sort of nod to the old original. You can get it on Move It right now. It's really, really fun. Reminds me of that old tactical squad shooter, and I'm really enjoying it.
So is Fortnite one of those weird online games, Steve? Like, it's an online game, right? Like, you're not playing. We've moved beyond the couch, right, Steve? Like, millions of people are logging online now, like more and more every day.
To be fair, I think you might be able to play as a couch in Fortnite. I don't know. You can play as a lot of stuff.
Great.
No, you know, it's weird. Fortnite is one of those weird things where I played it a lot, and the people I played with were very, very serious. And you know, losing kind of sucked because if you lost, bless you.
Bless
That was
you.
adorable, by the way.
That was the most adorable sneeze I've ever heard in my
Sorry
life.
about that.
But if you lose, you know, you get mad. If you win, you feel like you're entitled to the win. So it's like a no-win situation. And then I started playing with some people who just took it as a game. And I'll tell you what, people you play with matters so much for a squad game. Really, really, really enjoy playing that silly game just as not taking it serious.
I'm sorry, Steve.
I have come around to Fortnite quite a bit, actually. I think I've said this on the podcast before, but I did not like that game. I tried it and I just really struggled with it. It was just really obtuse to me for some reason, even though like you think it's a pretty simple premise. But I started playing after the big season 2 thing, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I really, really enjoyed it with other people. So I would absolutely love to join you for it at some point.
Yeah, we'll have to do. It's weird because Fortnite is so controversial, and I can't figure it out. I literally have people, regulars in my stream, who are like, "Steve, I love you so much, but I'm not gonna watch on the nights you play Fortnite." And it's heartbreaking. I hate that it kills some people's enjoyment. They won't watch, but at the same time, it like Reb said, it's with people, it's really fun. And they added robots. For those of you who don't know, they added AI controlled players.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so if you're
Really
not
good.
a high skill level, you can get some kills before you get murdered. So it's pretty cool.
Heck
That's
yeah.
I think there's like some, and I've experienced this a lot, writing about and talking about mobile games, but I think there's definitely a contingent of people who dislike games that are perceived as either for kids or for people who are maybe a little more casual. And I think there are people who have that sentiment in malice, and I also think there are people who don't have that sentiment in a malicious way, but kind of pick it up from people who do and don't really think too hard about it. And so, yeah, there's definitely a contingent of people who look down on Fortnite and look down on mobile games and look down on, I don't know, anything that can kind of be picked up and played in a more casual way like that.
I think a lot of it just comes down to it's become cool to hate on it. So even
That
if
too,
people
yeah.
I
don't
think you're
have
probably
like,
right about that.
even if people don't actually have an opinion, they just know that they're like everyone else is doing it, so they jump on that bandwagon. It happens
Yeah.
sometimes. It was like
It's
the
also
Mass
popular
Effect,
with the kids.
Yeah.
it was like the Mass Effect Andromeda glitch thing being overblown. Everyone was talking about it, so everyone jumped on, and it just snowballed.
That's true.
Well, like I think that's all pretty accurate. You know, like my son, for example, he's going to be 12 in April, which is really terrifying. And on his Switch, he's got like literally 480 hours of Fortnite and like maybe 10 hours of every other game other than Pokemon. And it's one of those things where like that's That's the zeitgeist right now, you know. And I'm sure at some point something else will come along and take its place. But yeah, like at some point once everybody starts streaming it, after a while, after time passes, it becomes cool to hate it. Like, you know, oh, it's mainstream, so I'm not going to like it. And
Yeah.
Right. Like at the end of the day, honestly, people just like to dump on anything that becomes mainstream because it's edgy or cool or whatever.
What people don't remember is that people used to actively cheer on Fortnite because it was getting close to dethroning PUBG.
I remember that.
And that was the game people wanted to hate on. And then they're like, yeah, Fortnite, take them down. And then Fortnite went way beyond people's expectations. They're like, whoa, calm down, Fortnite. Maybe stop.
There's also a couple people who seem to be mad at this thing called the Epic Game Store.
No, nobody's mad at Reb.
That's crazy, Reb.
That's ridiculous.
Anyway, I like Fortnite, and I like a lot of games that a lot of different people can enjoy.
I mean, listen, shout out to their marketing team. I mean, I don't want to make this a Fortnite podcast, but that game season 2 event, that worked. It put it in my brain. My brain decided I wanted to play it, and I was done with Fortnite too. I was like, all right, well, never playing that again. And just watching the stupid black dot in the middle of the screen for 2 days made me want to play it. So
I know. That's why I tried it again, because everybody was so noisy about it. I was like, fine.
Yep.
This is now Super to Fortnite Gamescast.
Good.
I'm officially.
That's one of the best puns you've done.
Right? It's still not good.
And I've
so
done a lot of really good puns.
Still a better name too. Yeah. All right. So
that's true. That's true. So as far as games that I've been playing, on Tuesday night, seeing as how I'm a Take This streaming ambassador, I was streaming on behalf of Take This for Giving Tuesday. And what I decided to do was play some really, really shitty games. And and boy, oh boy, did I find some stinkers on Steam. I found the cheapest games I could find with the worst reviews. And the first one I played was called The Graveyard, right? And what The Graveyard is I learned when I opened it, is you're just an old woman. It's black and white. You're an old woman, like an ancient woman, and you walk ever so slowly to a bench. Like I'm talking ever so slowly to a bench. Then you sit down on the bench, and you listen to some music for as long as you want, and then you get up from the bench, and you slowly walk towards the entrance way to the graveyard, and that's it. That's the whole game, right? And I was flabbergasted. I was like, wow, you got to be fucking kidding me. And then when the game ended, it offered me, right there on the stream, it offered me DLC for $5 that includes the woman dying of old age.
That's not funny. Why am I laughing?
So, John, like, you almost had me for a second there. I was going to, like, make a gentle remark, like maybe we shouldn't, sit here and shit on games that seem like they're bad. Maybe it's a little short experience that somebody made as like a meditation on death. Maybe it has some deeper meaning. But the DLC thing, no, fuck that.
No, it's literally
pay $5 to watch an old woman die.
It's literally like download the DLC that includes death, and I was like, holy shit.
So it's like the U.S. medical system, the game is that?
God
damn.
Yeah.
Like the crazy thing is like as you're walking towards the bench, you can hear like ambulances and sirens like throughout the city, and so if it's a meditative game, it completely ruins the atmosphere because I'm walking to the bench, it's like, and I was like, wow, this is what a peaceful experience this is, and then it offers me $5 death DLC.
I gotta tell you, I it's mighty ballsy of them to do DLC assisted suicide. Like that's impressive. I can't you're paying $5. It's ridiculous. Like that game.
Anyway,
that's a premium service.
Moving along.
Well, this was a good.
Usually, you got to slip the doctor at least a 20.
SDGC was fun while it lasted, but I guess that's.
May I recommend instead of playing The Graveyard, if you meditation on death with an old woman who walks places very slowly, try playing The Stillness of the Wind. A good little farming sim about a woman gradually wasting away on a farm in the middle of nowhere.
Or any of the other amazing like walking simulators that are actually good.
Yeah.
So a couple other games I played, I'll go over real quick. I played Get Rich or Die Gaming, which was another
game. What?
That's an actual game I found on Steam. It's called Get Rich or Die Gaming from Baller Studios.
So which did you do? Did you get rich or did you die gaming?
I did neither. I wanted to die.
Well, then what was the point of the game, John?
I wanted to die gaming after 5 minutes of Get Rich or Die Gaming, but it was it was very clearly made by a guy in his basement talking into a Yeti mic, and it was
superb.
I'm gonna post some pictures of it on Twitter after we're done here. Get Rich or Die Gaming was real. Then I played Garfield Kart, which just fucking sucked. Like that game's just terrible.
Wait.
Like,
Go back to the Get Rich or Die Gaming. What you said? All I learned about that was that it was made by a guy in their basement talking on a Yeti mic. So it could have been any of you.
Wow. It could have been. So Get Rich or Die. You know what? I'm actually gonna pull up the description for Get Rich or Die Gaming.
What is the game? I don't understand.
I was just about to read it.
Go ahead, read it.
Guide Wilson Cooper to his destiny.
That's it.
That's the description. That is the description.
That's the description for everybody in chat. Go look up if you have time. Get Rich or Die Gaming.
So John, can you give us an actual description?
What is the game?
It's a point and click. It's a point and click adventure game where your literal task is to start your own studio and create your own video game. Your dad kicks you out of your house at 15. And you decide, and then you walk around. And you're like, I need game. I need
abuse.
Well, not only that, but you're walking around and you look like Napoleon Dynamite. And this guy's like, I need to be game.
Don't make fun of him.
No, I'm not. But I'm just telling you what he
better.
looks like. He looks like Napoleon Dynamite, and the whole point of the game is he's like, I need to go start my own game studio and also score some drugs.
Yes, yes, of course.
I mean, why not, right?
All right.
It was a terrible fucking game. It was a terrible fucking game. I played Garfield Kart.
No, Finn, you have a question.
No. I just want to read some of the amazing user reviews.
Oh yes, good, please.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Steam is now worse than Newgrounds. It's one of those games that make you embarrassed to have it in your Steam list.
Yep. Okay.
And it's in my Steam list right now.
Pros none, cons everything. Unplayable. A bad high school project that ended up on Steam somehow. It's a giant pile of glitch.
It's terrible. It's fucking awful. But
all right.
I won't get into the rest of the bad games I played. One thing
he wants to talk about Garfield Kart.
No, I really don't want to talk about Garfield Kart. I seriously don't.
Well, if you don't want to talk about it, don't talk about it for very long because we spent a lot of time.
The last game I played was Alien Isolation on Switch for about 30 minutes, and there is no reason the game should look that good on a handheld.
It's so weird.
Incredible what they've done.
What game?
Alien
he's
Isolation.
He's talking about a good game now.
A good game. Alien Isolation.
He changed on us.
I changed gears. It looks fucking. It's the best looking handheld game I've seen as far as third party ports go. It's incredible. I'm done. Derek, go ahead.
Sure. God, I've been busy. Pokemon, right? Pokemon came out, and I've been playing that like nonstop because it's so good. I've been playing Mass Effect 2 and The Evil Within 2 both on stream, and that's been a continuing thing, and I'm rediscovering my love for both of those. Age of Empires 2, the Definitive Edition, came out, and that is always a comfort food game for me to dive in and play a couple games of every now and again. It's Age of Empires 2. Real-time strategy games are hard, folks. Like, I'm not even good at them, but it doesn't matter. I enjoy them so much. And then I have been continuing my self-inflicted torture of playing through the Call of Duty series.
I don't know why you're doing that.
I've never played... Well, look, so as I explained in chat, in the DMs, I once sat down and marathoned the Transformers movies, which I hate, because I needed to remind myself how much I hate them. And nothing Call of Duty does to me can be worse than what the Transformers movies did to me. So I've been playing the Call of Duty games, just the campaigns, and I've been moving through them, and they're not terrible. They're not really my type, but it's kind of interesting. I have actual reasonable feedback on most of them. I'm on Advanced Warfare now, the one with Kevin Spacey, which is not making me happy, but at least he's not a good person in the game as well as in real life. So but they've done some stuff with the movement options that are more in line with. I grew up on stuff like Unreal Tournament. I like shooters, but I grew up in the 90s on super fast paced shooters. So Call of Duty's always been very antithetical to the kinds of shooters I like to play. So this has been interesting, but you really can only play so many Call of Duty campaigns in a row before part of you dies inside. Just
yeah, like one.
bit.
Yeah, I can play less than one Call of Duty campaign.
I can only hear the phrase Oscar Mike so many times in a single day before my brain just shuts down.
Tango on your 6.
Yeah, I can't with jargon that I know does not actually get used in the field.
Not once in the Marine Corps did I ever say Oscar Mike. I just said, get the fuck down.
Also, background for everybody, I'm kind of broadly cynical about anything military. My dad was in the Air Force. My stepmom was in the Army, so it's not like I grew up separated and distanced from this stuff. That actually kind of specifically informs. I'm just deeply cynical about the military and the military-industrial complex and American imperialism. So going into Call of Duty as somebody who doesn't buy into the America oorah is always interesting, because some of these games are willing to kind of poke at that, and some of these games
Derek,
are just
what's wrong with America?
Oh, there's a lot wrong with America. There's a lot fucking wrong with America. I work in a news station. I have to see it every night.
I'm sorry, but I won't tolerate any anti-American sentiment on this podcast.
Woof.
But yeah, so some of these games straight up just are cartoonishly jingoistic, and it's bad. I'm forcing myself through
it. It's real bad. Yeah.
I get to stop, and then I get to pick up and play some good, wholesome Pokemans.
Pokemans,
which I'm having a lot of fun with. So
can me and Finn sort of bounce off that, and because I know both of us are playing Pokemon too.
Sure.
Please go right ahead.
Can we just have Pokemon 5 minutes?
You can have a Pokemon 5 as long as Steve is okay with that.
What? I'm sorry, I was asleep. What was that?
Steve, are you a Pokemon person? Do you Pokemon?
No, because it's Nintendo, and Nintendo super hates people with disabilities.
Yeah,
so
that's fair. Sorry.
That's a very good point.
Yep.
Oh, wait, I'm getting a note. I can't say that about Nintendo. All I can say is that Nintendo don't do accessibility.
Yeah. So. There's actually, I do, on this note, there's a thing that kind of bothers me about Sword and Shield. One major criticism I have for it, that there is an item that lets you adjust individual audio sliders for different elements like music, sound effects, things like that. And to me, it is bonkers to not have audio sliders.
You missed the crucial point of that. It is an optional quest. It's not
it's just a dude you can talk to a couple towns in to get.
Yeah, he's standing around.
Wait,
and you...
hold on.
So you can...
So it's a random dude that just has.
There's just a dude in the third town, and you talk to him, and he gives you AirPods, and the AirPods allow you to actually do volume sliders.
Yeah, so you can.
That's like the Fable 3 menu that you had to navigate by wandering around an actual level.
So okay, I don't want to soften how stupid this is, because this is deeply ridiculous. This is not a good thing. I will just clarify, this audio sliders have not been an option in Pokemon games before this, so this is the first time they've been introduced. Usually it's just a toggle something on and off kind of thing, which I think there's still at least one audio option that isn't locked to this. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's just this guy that's standing around, and I think the third town that you visit, he's walking around against the wall. He looks like every other dude in the game. There's no reason you would ever go talk to him unless you're actively talking to every NPC, and he gives you these things and the options pop up. It's very, very weird, and I cannot fathom why they did it this way. There's just no reasonable explanation for it.
I didn't even know this was a thing until I just randomly was into the game, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize I could screw with the oh, okay, all right. Now, that's one way.
I mean, you've never been able to before, so and I think that actually makes it worse, because it's not like people have been expecting this option and then come to the game and think, wait, where is this? How do I unlock this? And then try to figure it out. It's a thing that's not available to them.
But it's 2019, and it's weird that a game that has something like one-handed operation options, which is a nice thing to have, in Pokemon, and Pokemon's had that kind of not standard. It's been on and off for a bit, but
Let's Go was a disaster.
Yeah, but hey, here's something that has incredibly simplified, potentially even one-hand control schemes. Should be in a lot of ways easier. It's not relying on precise touch controls. But then really just incredibly dumb choices. But I mean, again, that's Nintendo. I hate to say it. I love them, but yeah.
No, that one's Game Freak though. That particular one is a development thing. Like Nintendo didn't swoop in and tell them how to.
Well, right, but Nintendo as the publisher still could be like, look, we've got to, we've got to enforce some accessibility.
Publishers control the rules and standards for accessibility. So if a game doesn't have the right accessibility, they can kick it back.
Yeah.
Not to.
Two people had a problem here, and neither of them fixed it.
Yeah.
No, I am really enjoying Pokemon. It's a weird feeling because I've loved Pokemon since I was a kid. I've always enjoyed the games. I am playing the crud out of this. I am working on finishing the Pokedex. I got over 260 caught this morning. I'm gonna try to finish it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm doing max raid battles, but it's a weird feeling because even though I'm like enjoying my time and I'm having fun, I recognize that so much of it is not good. Like, it's just the story of the game itself was not an entertaining one or a sensical one in any way. Like, not like it just had all these weird, pointless plot holes and boring sections and things that felt like they should have been bigger that weren't. The online is a mess.
It's so bad.
I put a little video on my Twitter this morning, not just promote, but it's of a person on a bike just flying through the air, which is just great. Max raid battles are extremely fun in concept, and I love doing them. Also, it's really hard to fill your party with other human beings, which it should not be, given how many people are playing Pokemon right now. And when you fill them with NPCs, the NPCs just suck.
They're terrible. The AI is
so it's just this weird like juxtaposition of enjoying myself actively, but recognizing that I'm enjoying myself probably for like a mix of nostalgia. I do like the monster designs. Like I'm enjoying collecting all these new Pokemon. Like I'm having fun doing that. I have opinions on the National Dex, which I really want to write about. That I think actually the National Dex is like the least of the game's problems. I think it's actually what they did was kind of smart and good. Which is, I know, an unpopular opinion, but I think it's like the least harmful thing they did with this game. But yeah, it's just, I feel weird about it, and I don't know. Yeah, it's a real weird game. I think some of it is because the game's on the Switch, and I just like playing Pokemon on the Switch regardless.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a super fun game. I mean, I think that's the thing about accessibility and the Switch and Nintendo in general is we wouldn't be half as upset about it if it weren't games that literally I have 11-year-olds come to me crying because they can't play. So so to spin it from the down to the up, Pokemon seems like an amazing thing, and I enjoyed using the BlueStack way to play Pokemon Go just so I could experience my first Pokemon game. So yeah, I would like to be able to play the new ones, even though this one's getting kind of panned by lots of people, including some of the things I heard here. I don't think it was their best foray into Pokemon, but the thing is, Pokemon's such a big IP, it really doesn't matter. You can have an 8 out of 10 and people are still going to go bonkers for it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Justin, to answer your question that you put in the chat, so my understanding is that Pokemon, the IP, is owned collectively, like in thirds, by Game Freak, Creatures, and is it Nintendo?
And Nintendo. The Pokemon Company is like the totality.
They all three own a share in the Pokemon Company, which is the entity that controls all Pokemon. Game Freak then is the developer. I don't think Creatures actually really does anything with
Creatures
it now.
Inc. is involved in some basic creative stuff, but it's more partnership because I think Creatures Inc. is more involved with all the other so stuff like the card game, which there's a specific company that actually makes the card game, but they make it like under and for Creatures Inc. and the Pokemon Company. So I think Creatures Inc. exists more to handle the non-video game aspects of Pokemon, but it's just this weird like Nintendo and Game Freak and Creatures are kind of all part of the Pokemon Company. And it's
they all own like a third of it basically.
Okay, so that's even more confusing than I thought because I forgot about Creatures.
Yeah, well, and it's awkward too because then you get people criticizing. A lot of people criticize Game Freak for things that Nintendo has probably like been adamant about, like in terms of release cycles and things like that. But then they also criticize Nintendo for things that Game Freak probably did. So it's but then Nintendo has like this oversight over Game Freak. It's very it's very muddy and it's really hard to know who's doing what and why.
I'm going to shout out somebody that's not a part or affiliated with us. The YouTube channel Mother's Basement did a fantastic breakdown on the Pokemon franchise and kind of how it's locked into this marketing cycle that kind of locks Game Freak into these really, really tight schedules and makes it where Pokemon is the way it is. And it's great. It's like 15 minutes, a great breakdown of the totality of it. So if Pokemon as a whole is confusing to you, I do suggest you check that out. Joff is also just a really good guy. And that's not an easy thing to say about people who are on YouTube for money these days.
All right, Justin, why don't you go ahead, and then we jump into our first.
I do want to make sure that Finn didn't have.
Well, I thought they were doing. I thought Finn and Reb were doing.
I dragged Finn into that. I want to make sure that Finn has a chance to talk.
Also, I hadn't actually said anything about Pokemon yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm also playing Pokemon.
Oh, okay.
No, Finn. Do you
What
have
else you
anything
been
else
playing,
you want to
Finn?
add about what you're playing?
No, that's pretty much it. It's been a busy week of a couple of weeks of work, so it's just slogging my way through Pokemon. I got
had
to
a
trade.
really busy few weeks.
I got to trade with Reb yesterday.
You did. I gave you a Ditto,
You gave me Ditto, and I gave you a Silicobra.
which I did not have yet. So that was a helpful entry in my
Teamwork.
Pokedex.
Exactly.
Your hair looks great, by the way.
Now, you looking
Thank you.
sharp as fuck, my dude.
Your beard looks really good, actually,
Yeah.
Finn. Like the
Fuck.
beard is looking good. Don't
Yeah.
wiggle your eyes at me. I paid you a compliment. Your beard
You
looks
did.
good.
No, it's not what you said. It's just the I play Pokemon and then suddenly compliments. I don't know.
I mean, your tree in the background looks amazing. I love it.
It does.
Really
It
does.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's
your
only half
shirt.
done.
Your shirt. I really like your shirt too. Your
Oh,
shirt is fantastic.
Those headphones are amazing.
Aw.
Okay.
You know, coming from Steve, it means something.
You know, Finn, you got a
You know-
smile that could light up the room.
Okay.
Finn, I never
So,
I never noticed the little
Oh,
speckles in your
alright.
eyes.
I mean, I can help you here, Finn. I think you're just amazing, buddy.
Aw.
Finn, I never noticed the layout of your living room there. It's very tasteful.
Yeah.
I really like it. Your chest hair looks really good too.
Is
Hey,
that a shadow?
Justin.
Is that a shadow? Oh,
Hey, Justin.
Hello, Reb.
What are you playing, buddy?
So, I've still been playing a lot of Call of Duty. It's not particularly great, but it's scratching an itch that I've had with like a multiplayer game that hasn't really been scratched in a while since it moved. Like everybody kind of moved away from, hey, here's a casual game you can jump in and play for a while, to here's a real serious business multiplayer game that you need to have a group of 4 friends to be able to play. So I've been playing that. I've also been playing Luigi's Mansion,
Yes!
which I'm really enjoying. I'm a big fan of the first 2 games, and I really, really like what they've done with Luigi's Mansion 3. Like, they took a lot of kind of some of the new mechanics and approaches that I liked from 2, but like combined it with, the approach to level design that the first game had, and then just expanded it out a whole lot. Also, I cannot believe that game is running on the Switch.
Oh, it's
Like,
beautiful.
Unbelievably good
like-
looking, yeah.
Like, it runs at a higher resolution than most Switch games with steady performance and
Yeah.
looks quite good. Like, it's the first game I've played on Switch that visually feels like a fully featured modern.
It could look like, I wouldn't be shocked to see it like on an Xbox or a PS4.
Yeah. No, it's really impressive. So I've really been enjoying that. And I also have started doing Ring Fit. Sorry.
It's the same thing.
No, it is
It is
not.
not.
I've heard Ring Fit as a work.
Okay, so Wii Fit was more of like here's a nice little like lifestyle wellness thing that anybody can do. Ring Fit is like, we got a swole ass dragon that needs to get the shit kicked out of it. You need to train right now. Like, I have been so sore this week from that game. Like, and I haven't heard a lot of people talk about how it's actually structured. Like, so to move through a level, you jog in place, and it tracks the speed at which you are jogging, and that controls the speed of your character. Like, to jump through the levels, you have to like aim the ring thing down and squeeze it in, and that launches you into the air.
You gotta flex
to
You're like,
jump.
ooh.
Yeah, and like
I
that thing
it.
has some serious resistance. And and like there's little things off to the side that like you can aim and like shoot puffs of air at. And then every now and then there's a monster battle, which is like a turn-based RPG battle, except your moves are like a full set of a workout. So it's like, here, do 17 squats. And then depending on how well you execute them, that determines the damage that you do to the enemy. And then like the last like 5, it's like, okay, do them fast. And then like when you have to like when you get attacked, you push the thing against your stomach and like hold your abs, and that generates a shield around your character that has abs on it. The shield has abs, and then that's your defense. Like, it's both a very fun game and like a crazy good workout. So I'm gonna keep sticking with that and see how it goes.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I'm right now. I'm thinking about a dragon that potentially fucks with washboard abs. So, like, that dragon.
That puts you in line with a lot of the internet, John.
There's no potentially.
The dragon absolutely fucks. Let's just get that.
I mean, like Drago's an interesting Nintendo character, that's for sure.
All right,
Nintendo discovered Twitter.
All right. So this is going way too long. We're going to move on, and we are going to talk about the 25th anniversary of PlayStation and talk about some of our memories, some of our favorite memories of PlayStation. And this isn't going to be like a, one person talks at a time. This is just a conversation. Anybody can jump in if they want. So yeah, PlayStation's been around for 20 years. I believe the PlayStation 1 dropped in 1995, if I'm not mistaken.
In the U.S., 94 in Japan.
In Japan, right? 94 in Japan. I had one on day one. Actually, I received it as a gift, and I know, right? That's really sweet.
That's nice.
And I was somebody who grew up with Nintendo and Super Nintendo, and the first game I played was Crash Bandicoot. And in retrospect, like looking back at Crash Bandicoot right now, Steve, OG Crash Bandicoot, it's so ugly. Like, that game has not held up well. But back then, like, my 15-year-old mind was absolutely fucking blown that I was controlling a character that ran in 3 dimensions and was running towards the screen at me. And I was like, this is the best game I've ever played in my life. Crash Bandicoot is it. Steve, were you a PlayStation kid?
It's funny. I was actually just having a conversation the other day about consoles and how, not like a boomer versus zoomer kind of thing, but it's interesting how when we were younger, everybody was like, do you own all the console? Because I do. It's amazing. And like, you would just bounce between them and you would play all of them as much as you could. And now, it's much more, well, are you Xbox or are you PlayStation? Like, it's turned into faction wars at some point.
Yeah, that's when it started.
Yeah, get reputation by grinding each other down, and not like the Apple, like the real grinding. I liked PlayStation 1. We were actually talking about, there was a helicopter game. Gosh, if I can remember the name of it, but maybe someone in chat knows. But there was a helicopter game where
was it Warhawk?
It might have been, but it was where you went through the city and you actually had to destroy tanks on a road, and you could shoot a missile into the background art, which was a building, and it would make like a little crack in the window. And I was like, oh my God, this is so advanced. It's realistic.
Would it have been Nuclear Strike?
Could have been. It was the first time the background started to be destructible in the quote unquote a way. It was just like, look at that, 12 Tomahawk missiles make a crack in a window.
It's
That's
so
amazing.
realistic. I feel like I'm there.
I'm in war right now. It's like, yeah, so it was amazing, and how easily we were made happy back then just cracks me up.
Go ahead, Derek. You want to say something?
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, I've always been all over the place, right? I mean, I grew up playing games on computers. I've always had Nintendo stuff. And I remember getting the original PlayStation relatively late in its life. I don't think I've ever been in day one on any PlayStation system. I'm usually a couple years to like halfway through before I even actually got one. But I've been with PlayStation since the beginning, generationally. And I think for me, when I got my PlayStation, I got Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy IX.
Those are two banger ass fucking games.
Yeah,
You get
and a couple others like Digimon World 1 and like the original Vigilante 8. So like, I mean, I had some stuff to play that was like real fun, and it wasn't like the beginning of 3D gaming to me. Because again, I'd been playing on like a Nintendo 64. I'd been playing, you know, Ocarina of Time by that point. But Final Fantasy VIII was the first thing I really like heavily dove into on the original PlayStation. And that's kind of a hard like lock in my head with the brand, not just because Final Fantasy stayed on PlayStation systems primarily for a long time, and that's a huge franchise in my childhood, but there's really nothing on the Nintendo 64, right, or the Super Nintendo that I had played that was really quite like something like Final Fantasy 8 or 9. And JRPGs really skipped the Nintendo 64.
They really did.
You know, and even when we hit like GameCube and PlayStation 2, JRPGs were broadly PlayStation 2. That's where almost all the great JRPGs went with like a couple of except Tales of Symphonia on the GameCube, fantastic. A lot of people apparently like Baten Kaitos, but
don't forget Skies of Arcadia.
Yes,
yeah,
Baten Kaitos, yes.
But
Thank you.
We're not talking about Quest 64, Finn. We're not.
Quest 64.
But yeah, so like as somebody who grew up like really hungering for JRPGs, you know, and hungering for games with stories and characters and writing, more than just combat and platforming challenges. Like PlayStation was there to feed that when Nintendo was not. You know, and I think it's always going to be a little special to me for that.
Can we, speaking of Pokemon, I know John and I are the elders of the channel, but does anybody remember Monster Rancher?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Now I know I'm on a gamer podcast. Okay,
Yes.
Monster Rancher was so good.
We've all got our gamer cards, Steve.
I
putting
cannot
in,
believe the amount of CDs I went through trying to get different. Still to
What
this
thing?
day, don't know. Was
Finn
it?
is like over here, like I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
I remember you'd put in.
Oh no, Finn, we can't hear you.
Finn, we can't hear you at all.
Did you unplug? Did you
so
mute?
excited, he unplugged his computer.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Finn, we can't hear you, buddy.
Oh no.
He's meditating.
Get down, Mr. President.
I was first worrying that we were stepping all over you, and then I realized nope.
Yeah, Finn, we still can't hear you,
Oh
buddy.
my
Oh,
god!
no.
Oh no.
I
Not
got
this
Finn.
Just
again.
unplug. Plug
Well,
back
well,
in.
all right, Finn,
We'll
Finn,
keep
Finn,
going. Finn,
Okay.
will you raise your hand if you promise you will yell at us when you get it solved?
Yeah.
Okay.
He
So,
didn't raise his hand.
Finn, raise your hand right now.
He
Steve,
can
do you want to
hear
give a
us.
description of what Monster Rancher is for those that might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, sure. Since Finn the Excited is muted.
Yeah.
So Monster Rancher was like the first Pokemon game in a lot of ways. You literally would put in the Monster Rancher CD. You would go and you would capture a monster at a monster trainer, and it would tell you load your monster, and you would have to put in a different CD that you had in the house. And depending on what CD you put in, it would give you a different monster with different stats. Are you
Finn,
back, Finn?
just
Are you
yell.
back?
No.
No.
No, nothing. Can't hear you.
Yeah. So excited. But it was so good. You actually caught them with your physical CDs in your house. I know the kids are like, what is a CD? It used to be
Oh.
a small disc that we
Come
put data
on.
on.
We know what
So-
CDs are.
Do you?
Do you
No.
really though?
I'm not that young, Steve.
You're
I'm
like
grown up.
21.
You're
21
20s.
max.
I'm 28.
I don't believe it. 21 and a half. That's all I give you.
I'm 29 in January. Come on.
Red,
I'm
you do
almost
look very
30.
small and young.
I
Like
do.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize Red was
Yeah.
older than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, not by much, but just by a little
Not
bit.
a baby, guys.
I
Not a
was-
gamer baby.
I
meanwhile,
was
Maddie's
still
like
card
22.
you, so. Listen, if we went and got a drink at PAX, they would absolutely card you and take your ID. So
Absolutely.
I
yeah.
have not gotten carded at several establishments. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ben,
Finn,
Now?
Yeah!
Well, that's
what were
because
you going to say?
I had to switch to my webcam mic, so I might not have as good quality, but I don't know what happened.
okay.
I'll have to get
You
Mike.
sound
Monty and Derek.
I can't believe
Anyway,
you do that with
I
these
was saying
microphones.
I cannot believe how many CDs from girls in school I borrowed.
Right?
Throwing them on
Right.
Slick.
I was like,
That's
I
a
was like,
brave admission.
Woo!
I don't even care.
What are you talking about? I'm proud of my dude.
Look, that's why I can definitively say Backstreet Boys were better than NSYNC in the early in that early period. Okay, Backstreet's
I
Back
just-
is definitively better than Bye Bye Bye, and that's just facts.
That's
See,
hilarious.
I just have this mental picture now of Finn walking up to some girl in high school and being like, "Listen, I'm
High
gonna be straight with you,"
school?
or listen, high school, and being like, "Yo, listen up, can I borrow your Backstreet Boys CD? I'm playing Monster. See, I'm playing Monster Rancher right now."
It was middle school, and I just had to be like, "Yo, there's this cool game that uses CDs, but I need to use different ones. Can I borrow them for a day, and I'll bring them back tomorrow? Because, and they're like, weird, but sure.
Yeah.
Weird flex, but okay. But no, Monster Rancher.
Narrator.
Look, babe,
Finn
here's the
never
skinny.
gave the
You got any
Backstreet Boys
CDs on
CDs
this
back.
list? Like,
Right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying the best monster I ever got was on an Ace of Base CD, so I don't know what to tell you.
Oh,
Whoa, dude,
Yeah.
you saw the
Yeah.
sign.
I did.
Don't-
Oh, John is actually doing good tonight.
all she wanted was another baby. Okay,
Oh,
she's gone tomorrow, Steve. Yeah, no. Can I jump in on PlayStation talk?
Yes, please talk.
Hit us.
please, Finn.
Stop
So-
asking permission. Just yell
I
over
will
us.
always never. I did not get a PlayStation initially. Quite like Derek, I was a Nintendo kid. I initially got the 64 because Mario 64 was awesome. Then I quickly realized it was only Mario 64 for a long time. And you have to understand, like John knows, we just had come off of Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy 3, which is 6, but for us it was 3. And so after Final Fantasy 3 blew my mind and Chrono Trigger blew my mind, I'm like, I cannot wait to see what Square does next. And they're like, oh, you want to know what we're doing next? We're going to PlayStation, bitch. And I'm like, I guess I am too. And when Final Fantasy 7 came out, I went to Blockbuster and I rented the PlayStation because you could do that back in the day. You could rent
Mhm, you
consoles from Blockbuster
You
because my
could.
parents were like, we're not paying for another system. We just got you a Nintendo 64. I'm like,
Steve, guess what? I know what Blockbuster is.
oh, because you watch Captain
Don't believe
Marvel.
it.
Got it. Okay. So I got it, and I got Final Fantasy 7, and no one told me you needed a memory card. So when I realized you couldn't save, I left it on for the entire week, and I played straight, and I beat Final Fantasy 7, and then I bought a PlayStation because Final Fantasy Tactics was coming out, and then I got the demo disc that had Brave Fencer Musashi and Xenogears
Yeah, great
Einhander.
Musashi for the motherfucking win.
and fucking Bushido Blade, still one of the greatest fighting games that I don't know why they've never remade.
Please, for the love of God, bring Einhander to modern console.
Oh man.
Steve, come back. I'm sorry.
No. He had to go somewhere real quick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, he blamed you.
He's got to go to Blockbuster. He's got to go back in time.
Oh.
He's got to.
Yeah.
He's got to go up to the last Blockbuster in Alaska.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
And my final just like specific PlayStation 1 memory is because PlayStation came out during middle school, so I didn't have a job. I didn't have disposable income like I did by the time PS2 hit. And I remember saving up my money because there was no real internet back then, so we got most of our news from the magazines, and there was just these single page ad inserts for Lunar Silver Star Story by
Ooh.
Working Designs, and
Lunar
I was like,
so good.
holy shit, this looks so good. And then it was like, and when you buy it, it comes with all this cool shit because this was before collector's editions were ever really a thing. And Lunar came with some swag in it.
It did.
and I
Lunar came with
saved up,
motherfucking swag, dude.
and I saved up, and I had it pre-ordered at Babbage's, and it was kept getting delayed. It was like delayed like 6 months. But I didn't know that, so I would get like the current release date, and I would get a ride to Babbage's, and I would go, and they'd be like, "Yeah, it's not out yet." And then it finally came out, and it was great. And
Whenever
that's
Finn
that
mentions
story.
Babbage's, I just want to. I feel so old. God, fucking Babbage's, or like
Mhm.
EB, like.
I remember EB.
Yeah,
that
I
wasn't that
worked
long
at a
ago.
Babbage's.
Here's
I
the
worked
thing.
at a Babbage's.
Here's the thing about PlayStation. It was weird, right? Like when it was first in, like the PlayStation was originally supposed to be an add-on for the Super Nintendo. Like I don't know how many people know that.
Literally
But it
everyone,
was-
I'm sure.
It looks like Reb doesn't know. PlayStation was originally supposed to be an add-on for the Super Nintendo, and Nintendo kind of was like, "Oh, we're not going to do that anymore." And Sony was literally like, "Yeah, well, we'll show you, motherfucker." And they put out the PlayStation. And when Final Fantasy VII was announced for the PlayStation, they had actually worked up a demo for the N64. And Finn, if you remember, they actually had a running demo of Final Fantasy VI running in 3D with 3D models on the N64 as a demonstration of what it could do. But when Final Fantasy VII was announced for the PlayStation, two things happened. One, in Japan, everybody immediately went, okay, well, fuck Nintendo, PlayStation it is. That was huge because Final Fantasy in Japan up to that point was synonymous with Nintendo. And two, here in the United States, Final Fantasy wasn't yet really a mainstream household name. However, nobody had ever seen anything like Final Fantasy VII before visually. I remember going to EB and they had big, back then, CRT televisions, because there was no such thing as flat screens back then. Big CRT televisions with FMVs from Final Fantasy VII playing, and I'd never seen anything like that before. And Final Fantasy, or not Final Fantasy VII, but PlayStation in general was the first console that really exemplified the future to me. You know, I was like, this is what video games can be. This is we're living in the future now, and obviously everything looks archaic. But that was the first time I really felt like we were moving, like the industry had forward momentum. Like, Steve, does that make any sense at all? Or
no, yeah, I mean, don't forget that PlayStation 1 brought us things like Theme Hospital and, you know, some of the advancements in the Digimon world that we mentioned, Xenogears, I mean, Tekken 3 and Diablo 2. I mean, you know, these were some of the games that sort of changed gaming as we knew it.
Well, I had a really similar experience sort of a similar experience to Derek, and Finn a little bit too. I grew up as a Nintendo kid, and I actually didn't really grow up with video games. I mean, I know I just like advocated for my age a few minutes ago, but I didn't really start playing video games until I was like 10 or 11 or so with a Game Boy Color, and I didn't get a console until a few years later when I saved up my money and bought my own GameCube. And then my GameCube was my console for years and years and years. I didn't get another one. Like, my parents didn't get me one. I didn't like have pocket money to get one. So I was pretty much stuck with handhelds and the GameCube for years. But my friend had a PS2 and then later a PS3. And so I knew she was always talking about like all these RPGs. Like, I remember in middle school, she got Kingdom Hearts. And she would come, and every morning before school, we would stand in the hallway, and she would explain to me what had happened in Kingdom Hearts that night when she had played it. And I wanted to play Kingdom Hearts so fucking bad, but I couldn't afford the console. So I played Chain of Memories on the Game Boy Advance. I actually really liked Chain of Memories. I know no one else did, but when that's your only Kingdom Hearts, you do kind of like it. But eventually, I got to college, and I had, you know, like a job, disposable income, and I saved up. And at this point, the PS3 was like out. But I went and bought a used PS2 on Amazon, and I went back because I wanted to play all these old RPGs that I had missed. I wanted to play, and I got like Final Fantasy X, and I got Final Fantasy VII. I didn't like that because you could put in a PS1 memory card of the PS2, and you could, you know, play the PS1 games. I played Chrono Cross, and after I played Chrono Trigger, and I fucking loved Chrono Cross so much. There were some I didn't get to. Like, I got my PS2, the same one, back from my ex literally like 2 weeks ago. And I have a copy of Star Ocean Till the End of Time, which I bought and never played. So I need to get around to playing that. But I finally got to play Kingdom Hearts. I got to play Tales of the Abyss, which I love Tales of Symphonia on GameCube, and I love Tales of the Abyss, except there's way too much talking, and it's mostly a lot of walking back and forth between towns.
I didn't realize you were a Tales fan.
Yeah, Tales is great.
I have no fucking idea.
Tales is fucking chicken noodle soup, man. Tales is good. But yeah, there were some games that I got caught up on. I wanted to play Wild Arms 3. I didn't actually get around to that, but I really wanted to play it. There were a lot of games I didn't ever get around to playing. There were some that I did. I played Artonelico because I had been listening to the music on like YouTube and stuff, or I don't know if YouTube, I guess YouTube was what I was listening to it on at the time. And I love the music for the Artonelico games. Like, it's so good. It's amazing. They like invented this whole other language for these games, but then you play it, and it's a weird anime bullshit with a lot of weird sexual innuendos, and it's not actually a good game. But the music is incredible. It's so good. So yeah, I got to catch up on a lot of games on my PS2. And incidentally, I don't have a ton of disposable income. I'm not usually able to afford the newest consoles. I had a PS4. My ex has it now. So now pretty much my new system is a Nintendo Switch, and my PC, which I love. But I still have my PS2 now, and that is literally the only machine in my apartment that can play DVDs. So I still watch movies on my PS2.
When I think of PS2, there is one game that I think of more than any other game. And there are a lot of games I love on PS2, like, from, Final Fantasy X to, it's all kinds of games. But there's one game on PS2 that I have really fond memories of, and that is Prince of Persia: Sands of Time.
Ooh,
That game's great.
Because, Steve, did you ever play Prince of Persia?
A little bit. It wasn't really one of my favorite games ever.
One of the most interesting things about Prince of Persia for me was I had never seen, like, the whole time rewind mechanic had never been really used in a game like that before. And I remember just filling the hourglass up or filling the dagger up and then just rewinding time, running across walls and then rewinding time, because I thought that was the coolest shit I had ever seen. Actually, what? Justin hasn't really had much of a chance to cut on this. Justin, I want you to give us some PlayStation memories, man.
Okay, so when I was growing up, I wasn't really actually allowed to have consoles that weren't portables. I was eventually able to get a GameCube when I got older, but in general, I wasn't able to actually own consoles of my own. My mom didn't like buying me anything gaming related. But I had a lot of friends that had PlayStations and stuff. So like I played a lot of the big games that the PS1 and PS2 had, and it kind of seemed more special because it felt like, oh, this is something that other people get to do that I'm not allowed to. But like I still remember when I first saw Resident Evil 2, and when I first played Metal Gear Solid, like that game blew
that's
my
a
mind.
great one. Yeah,
That game, like, because like that game kind of introduced me to, I'm like, oh, games can be more story focused in a way that was different than the JRPGs and stuff that I had been playing. Like that game blew my mind and has been a very formative game and series for me ever since. And I still remember when I got my PS3. It was in 2008 when Metal Gear Solid 4 came out. They had a bundle that included Metal Gear Solid 4, and it was the first like bundle that you could get where the controller actually had rumble. Because remember the PS3 didn't have rumble at launch, and like that was one thing that drove me nuts, because that controller felt so like it felt so light and crappy without any kind of rumble in it. So I picked it up, and I actually didn't really want the system all that much. I just wanted to play Metal Gear Solid 4. So I was planning on selling it after I got it. The only other game that I wanted to play on it at that point, I think, was Resistance: Fall of Man, which I did get and I liked. But I remember there was one day I was browsing the bargain bin at a local just a local like entertainment electronics store. Most of those chains have gone out of business at this point. And I found Uncharted, and I had not played it. I hadn't really heard much about it.
You're so good.
But I'd always been a big fan of like pulp adventure stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check this game out. That game blew my goddamn mind. And ever since then, I don't think I've ever seen a company that has just, their output has been so laser focused on my tastes as Sony's first party output has been. Like I went over a list, and basically in my top 2 games for basically the past 10 years has been at least one, if not more, like Sony developed and published games. The PS3 eventually became my favorite system ever, and this was something I bought that I wasn't planning on even keeping for a long time. I don't know. I'm a real big PlayStation fan. It's probably no secret if you follow me on Twitter, or have heard my game tastes on this show.
I never would have guessed that, dude.
But no, it's cool. And 25 years is a huge milestone, so it'll be interesting to see where they go in the future. We got PS5 looming soon, and I'm excited.
Well, speaking about the future,
we got Finn.
We have a lot.
John, you're doing the fucking thing again, Finn.
Oh, Finn. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't looking at the screen. I was looking at something else.
It's okay. I just had one last thing to say, which was the 1 year that I think no console has ever pulled off again, which was just utterly dominating everything for one holiday, was 2001, the Christmas that Xbox and GameCube launched, and PlayStation was like, "That's cool. You could buy a GameCube with Luigi's Mansion, or you could buy an Xbox with that Halo game." Or you could buy Grand Theft Auto 3, Gran Turismo 3, Final Fantasy 10, Devil May Cry, Jack and Daxter, Metal Gear Solid 2, and Ico.
Jesus.
It was the most. They all released within like 3 months of each other. And I just remember as a kid going like, "You've got to be fucking kidding me! This is ridiculous." No game system has ever had that strong of an exclusive holiday lineup like ever again. It's redonk. That's all I gotta say.
That I didn't actually realize that all of that was one holiday season.
Yes,
And it was the holiday season that the GameCube and Xbox launched.
And Silent Hill 2, forgot that one.
Whoo, that's a kind of a big one too. God damn.
Yeah.
That was the PS2 had the craziest first year of like anything I've ever seen.
Well, I mean, it also like a lot of the PS2 sales were because it was the cheapest DVD player on the market.
Of course. Yeah, that's how I sold my parents on it.
Yeah, but I do want to move on to some of our questions here because we've got a lot of them. And
what?
Actually,
No, hold on. Sorry, before you change the subject, what's happening in chat? What are you're gifting?
Somebody's gifting a shitload of subs.
Thank you. So I don't know how to pronounce this name.
Deary GT or
Deary.
Thank
you.
Gifted 10 subs to people in the community. So thank you so much.
That is extremely kind. Thank you.
Tons of subs. Yeah, that's awesome.
We got the
Sorry, John. Please continue.
Thank you so much.
Actually, before we do questions,
no, it's fine. No,
before we do questions, I want to know if we wanted to talk about the Riot news, which won't take terribly long. We're gonna pass that up. You think?
We had that on the docket. I'll throw out really quick. Riot Games. So they actually this is a preliminary settlement. There's a preliminary settlement between Riot Games, which was sued by several former employees over issues of gender diversity, pay disparity, several other issues. Kotaku had that big expose a couple years ago, worth reading if you somehow missed it. But they had a preliminary settlement. That came out a couple months ago, but it came out just a few days ago this week that the settlement is Riot's going to pay out $10,000 to these women. It is unfortunately 10 million. Sorry, 10,000 is nothing. I think 10,000 is what it ended up being if you split it evenly between everybody involved, maybe. But the 10 million is given out between every woman employee of Riot since like 2014. Which I think it was Polygon, I believe, that originally broke this. Or not Polygon, Hollywood Reporter, somebody.
It was.
I don't have it up in front of me because I didn't think we were talking about it. I thought we were going to move on. We were talking about it. Derek didn't see the chat, so that's my
I can't because remember,
I know you're streaming. That's our bad. But basically, it's both good that they're having to suffer some consequence for this. Riot's been saying vocally that they're trying to change their culture. I think there are many reasons to be skeptical of how deep this is going. Also, $10 million split between that many people ends up not being very much, depending on how long they were there. So it's a complex situation. Read up on it. Be skeptical of Riot Games.
Okay, sorry I derailed everything.
No, you can't see.
God,
it's worth mentioning, but yeah,
it is. But aside from the good news there, we don't want to give Riot too much of our airtime because they're still extremely problematic. We do have a ton of questions, and actually, you know what? The first one is for Steve from @ForeverClassic105 on Twitter. Steve, Alex wants to know what sort of accessibility features are you looking for in the next console generation?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
The weird thing is that accessibility has come to the point that I'm not really looking for accessibility features to be on the console level. I'm looking for them to continue to be in-game. So we saw Xbox bring in their system-wide accessibility, and that's great. You can remap things. But the problem with that still is that once you change your X to a Y, then it's that in every single game. So if they made it where the system was smart enough to know that you're only changing a system-wide accessibility feature for a specific game, that would be fantastic. but at the moment, system-wide is still not the solution that I nor AbleGamers recommends. It's sort of a last stop gap safety measure for developers that either don't care or don't care about putting in accessibility. So my as much of a cop-out answer as that sounds, I'm not really looking forward to the next systems being more accessible. The only thing I'm looking forward to is games continuing to do their part and be more accessible because they want to be.
Hey, Steve, may I ask you a somewhat related question?
Nope.
All right.
Shoot.
What did you think of, and you may have already been aware, but I know they made them public, and I wasn't sure if that was different from things you were aware of. What did you think of Xbox's publicizing its accessibility guidelines for developers earlier last week, I think?
So it was really kind of interesting. Our AbleGamers includifications, accessible.games was mentioned many times. So APX, accessible player experiences, is the documentation research that came out from AbleGamers. You can go see it at accessible.games, and they mentioned it many times in their guidelines. That said, we tend to tell people don't lean on guidelines. Guidelines are great for testing, but not for designing. We much prefer people to think about accessibility as a mindset, as how do I use personas? How do I, Jimmy Smith also has a disability. What would I do if Jimmy only had one hand? So that kind of situation, and what I love about what our research team did is they came out with some amazing ways for people to use these design patterns to figure that stuff out. So super proud to be a part of Xbox's attempt at guidelines. At the same time, kind of still like our own.
Well, Steve, one thing I really hope that is addressed as far as accessibility goes next generation is Steve Saylor, who is a friend of mine, is legally blind, and for a while now, he and I have had discussions about text size in games. And I think a really egregious example of that is Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Fucking Emblem! It's too small!
I love Fire Emblem, don't get me wrong, but playing that game, it's bad enough on a television, but when you're playing it undocked, holy fucking shit. And there is no slider or text size option for...
I have 20/20 with my glasses on, and I can't read. I can't read it. A bunch of other people cannot read it. Good Lord.
It's unbelievable. So Steve, I guess I'm wondering, just as kind of like one question, as somebody who worked with Microsoft to develop the Xbox Adaptive Controller, how can advocates for accessibility in games petition Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo to pay more attention to the fact that not everybody can play everything, and to kind of like level the playing field for everybody?
Well, let's just be blunt, since this is that kind of podcast. It's fucking inexcusable that in this day and age, font change size is not an option in every damn game that there is on the market. It's 2020. This was an excuse that we got that was borderline acceptable back when I first went to Rockstar in 2013. They explained, with geographical changes, the font size was a problem because in American it would be this size, in American, I'm super tired. In English, it would be this size, and in Chinese, it would be huge and all the way off the screen. Okay, sure, I get that, but now we're smart enough to be able to figure out ways around that, so there's no excuse. If you are somebody out there who cares about accessibility or just cares about being able to read the freaking text on the screen, then just tweet them and email them and get onto their forums. Especially now, publishers in particular, but developers as well, are under huge pressure to start complying with accessibility. There is a giant wave of people pushing that way, and the more people that add their voice to it, the more powerful that wave becomes.
And I think that's really important, not just for everybody on this podcast, but for everybody in chat room, is that there are individuals out there right now who want to play and can't, and it's incumbent upon everybody, not just people with disabilities, but people who don't have disabilities, to raise your voices and tell the industry that we need to do better. We need to do a lot better, like Steve just said. it's 2000. It's almost 2020, and I've had.
And it's fucking infuriating when small low budget indie games can do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And people with piles and piles of money can't manage it.
Yeah, it's beyond the pale.
I've brought this up before on this subject, but I really do think for abled people who are who are curious about this stuff and don't feel well educated, if you want a very easy introduction to a lot of these subjects, Mark Brown at Game Maker's Toolkit did a fantastic series of videos on different categories, from things like visual impairment to audio impairment to executive dysfunction, and things of those various sorts, to kind of explain ways that some games fail and do good at adapting to people with disabilities. So again, if you're curious about a subject, you want to maybe become a little better educated, like, that's a good entry point, I will say. Very bite-sized and digestible.
Not only are you correct, but Imran brings up a great point in the chat where Spyro literally did not put subtitles in the remake of Spyro.
Oh, really?
Because and wait for it, because they didn't want to ruin the nostalgia. Because accessibility didn't exist.
What? They just turned the subtitles off. Like, it doesn't make fucking sense.
So it was because of fan demand. It was because of organizations like AbleGamers and very loud advocates that made a lot of noise that they felt enough pressure that they did it because they didn't want to. So
the fact that we're still there is so sad. Like, it's 2020 and
I didn't hear the nostalgia argument. I just heard them be like, "There's no industry standard for subtitles."
I
so
did
like I remember hearing them be like, "Oh, there's no standard, so we just didn't."
Fucking make one, bitches.
Yeah, somebody could go search my Twitter because I did tweet about it at the time. But essentially, in one of their articles, they answered the accessibility question to an able-bodied journalist with the answer of, "Yeah, we didn't want to ruin the original aesthetic." So,
that's why every character design was completely redone from scratch into completely drastically different characters. Got it. But what do I know?
Lordy.
Was the actual answer that they didn't have Q&A time or that they didn't have time to test it? Maybe, but the answer that they gave was that they threw accessibility under the bus. So that's not acceptable. So I mean,
if the idea is to bring back a game so that more people can play it, including those who played it originally and those who didn't get a chance the first time, maybe consider that you want more people to play it.
That's absolutely true. And the only two things I'd like to add onto that real quick, I know we're pressed for time.
No, please.
No, go ahead.
Number one, I got a lot of Twitter follows, but I know I've also got some mutes under my belt, and that's because I'm pretty loud and boisterous on Twitter. And sometimes some of our mutual friends have said, "Steve, you get aggressive sometimes on Twitter," and I do, because sometimes you have to yell at these companies for doing wrong, and even someone in my place doesn't have enough clout to be able to tell them they need to do this without people joining in. And I have to rile Twitter up, and other advocates have to rile Twitter up, and we've begun to realize that when we go to these meetings, the PR people who control those accounts are sitting right there, and they tell the people who make the decisions, "Yeah, we're hearing this a lot on Twitter. It's really getting annoying," and it makes them change their decisions. So if you're sitting listening to this podcast, or if you're just telling one of your friends, my tweet doesn't matter. Yes, it does. It really does.
I greatly dislike the attitude as well that your message is important, but you just fight a little too aggressively for it. Like, on something that is important, you should fight. You should get aggressive.
You're not protesting the right way.
Yeah. The tone policing. Anybody who mutes you because you're not saying it the way they want to hear it, that's not the problem. The problem is that they don't want to hear what you have to say, and that's just a convenient excuse to tune you out. I'm going to throw that out there.
I do terrible jokes, not because of my advocacy.
I mean, I'll say this: I can't relate. I don't know what it's like to be aggressive. Like, I am extremely passive.
I'm going to stop you right fucking there.
His his own mic cut him off so that he didn't even
Deep
say
Derek, voice of shame.
Anyway, Imran says I muted John because he kept tweeting fake game announcements.
That's fair.
I mean, you knew they were fake because they were coming from John.
I mean,
It's like John's like, oh yeah, a Metroid announcement. Yeah, that's not happening.
Man, shut up.
It's the world that we're in, and you know, man, I feel like y'all are such a silly, fun gamecast, and I always come with the serious. I don't mean to, but
No,
just
please don't apologize.
We invite you on because we think that your message is important and that you are also an extremely enjoyable and entertaining human being, and we want both of those things on our podcast.
Rev, that's why I like you the best.
Life.
So
Shucks, Steve, I'm a big fan of you too.
So, but you know,
shucks, Buster.
But no, I mean, just like I was tweeting out right before the podcast, the thing that got me mad, you know, TikTok has announced that they were censoring people with disabilities, queer, LGBT, even fat people.
Wait.
Because it's on my Twitter. They were censoring people and not showing their videos to other people because, and this is a Facebook quote, Facebook was doing the same thing, saying that some people find disability disturbing. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because most of us here are very strong advocates for what I call, you know, progress for the right, as I'll call it, the right agendas anyway. And you know, people I think sometimes like to think that with the ADA and it's 2020 and you know these things are going away. They're not. There are still people in very powerful positions that will censor the crap out of stuff that they don't want to hear, including when you fight for the right to be heard. So, you know, if you happen to fall in any of the categories I just listed, your TikToks probably were never seen.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, they tweaked it, and their reasoning was, when I read the article, is that they it's kind of like when Activision said to keep nostalgia. Their reason that they were going for that they said was we didn't want them to get cyberbullied, so we just didn't give them a platform. That was
fuck
the real reason. I mean, TikTok is a Chinese-owned company. And we know that a lot of Chinese companies have very regressive policies about LGBTQ people and various you know, types of minorities and stuff. And that's
we don't want to look at queer, fat, and disabled people. That's what it is.
Yep.
Free Hong Kong, China. That's all I gotta say.
Stop fucking harvesting the organs of Uyghur people.
John has been permanently banned from all of Blizzard.
I have, I'm done now. Twitch is probably going to shut the stream down now. We actually have another question for Steve.
Nope.
Nope, Steve, you got to answer this one. And boy, oh boy, some people in chat and on this podcast are not going to like it. At Keyman Plays Games wants to know, I would like to know Steven Spohn's official statement on whether popcorn is a dessert.
Oh yes.
Yes.
All right.
The people have to know.
I see I have infected the discourse further.
This is Zach's fault. He's not even here to take this.
Homeless Wizard isn't even here.
I know, that was very sad for me, by the way.
I'm sorry. We'll let him know that you missed him and his terrible opinions about popcorn.
I'm just making fun of his
Don't
clothing.
forget, I'm here too.
God damn it, Steve.
So I'm going to answer it this way. Caramel popcorn is a dessert, and salted popcorn is a snack.
You know what?
There you go.
Fine.
You know what?
Yep,
I'm a believer that dessert is just a snack with an appointment.
Hot dog is a sandwich.
Correct.
Yeah,
Popcorn.
that's
I'm
right.
with it. I'm there.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, popcorn.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Hot dog is not a sandwich.
Yeah, it
It's a
is. It
sandwich.
absolutely
A
is.
hot dog is not a sandwich.
Well,
we're not.
So
we're
Sandwich.
not doing this.
It's
John,
basically sandwich.
I am leaving if we're doing
if you get a
Does
Subway,
anybody know?
right?
Does
If you
anyone
get a
have access
sub,
to the question?
a lot of
besides
sub
John?
sandwiches
No.
are still connected. They're just a big bun.
God.
No,
What's-
sandwiches are separate. The bread is separate.
So is a
Hot
sub
dogs
not a
are
sandwich?
John. Anyway,
Would you
I
call a
don't-
sandwich a
I
hot
don't-
dog? Would
I
you
don't-
call a sandwich a hot dog?
No,
don't
because I
wanna
wouldn't call
do
a
this.
sandwich a
Let's
Reuben
go-
either. There's
Okay,
types
I'm
of
trying to
sandwiches.
look up. I'm trying to look up other. I want to do this so little. I'm trying to find other questions.
I've got the questions.
I don't understand.
Here's one.
I didn't say a thing about hot dogs. I don't know what you're talking about.
No one said anything.
I'm a mind reader. At Scotty_J_ wants to know, given the opportunity to remake any game of your choosing, what would you choose, and what major change would you make? And he also says hot dogs are not. Steve, we'll start with you.
Well, I can't answer that question because hot dog is a sandwich. If I could remake any video game, oh man, I got to give it to the old Star Wars Galaxies. I would remake that in a heartbeat.
Oh, that's a spicy choice. That's good.
I would remake the old Star Wars. I would not allow Smedley to come anywhere near it, and it would succeed. And it would grow, and it would have better numbers than WoW. So there you go.
He went on to do H1Z1, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. No, dude, that's a great answer. I think the answers everybody already knows, but I would make really
your mic said no.
I didn't need to hear what you said. It was Final Fantasy VI.
I know what he said, but his mic wouldn't.
I would silence. I would remake Final Fantasy VI with HD 2D sprites and an orchestrated soundtrack. That's what I would change.
I'm glad you're sticking with 2D. I'm glad that you think that it does not need 3D.
Octopath Traveler style.
It doesn't want like say what you want about Octopath game, but I love it. But it was visually just incredibly beautiful, and I thought
when I first saw the very first reveal trailer for Octopath Traveler, there was about 5 or 10 seconds where I thought, "Wait, is this FF6 remade?"
For a second, I was flipping the fuck out. Yeah. But I would not change anything but the visual style. I don't think that kind of game needs a 3D overhaul like Final Fantasy VII is getting. I think that would ruin the whole point of the game.
Yeah.
So that's what I would, and I would just the only thing I would add is the orchestrated soundtrack. Other than that game is fucking perfect. Finn.
Ooh, come back to me. I'm still debating in my head which one I want to go with.
This is brutal.
Yes. Okay. So I feel like I come back to a lot of the same stuff on this podcast before, but I know I've said this before. I would remake Chrono Cross. I think Chrono Cross is a good game that people did not like in the moment because they were expecting a direct Chrono Trigger sequel. I also think it had some problems that could be solved in a remake. I think its soundtrack is beautiful. I think its visuals are beautiful, but upgraded could be even more beautiful. I think its battle system needs some help, and I think I would keep the same basic plot. I wouldn't change the plot dramatically, but I think I would add like tweaks to it. I would go over the writing to make it cleaner and less weird and kind of rambling. I guess I would transition dragons a little bit easier, make a little bit more sense with what all is going on.
Rev, do you think it's the writing or the local?
Having not played the original Japanese, regardless, I would improve it. I would also, I think I would want to add, one thing I liked about Chrono Trigger, kind of in retrospect, is the extra, because I played it on the DS, the extra dungeons that were added that kind of tied it into Chrono Cross a little bit.
Yeah.
I would add a little bit of additional content, not a ton, not a massive overhaul, but maybe an extra dungeon or something, just to sort of tie it in a little bit more tightly with Chrono Trigger, or maybe I guess alternatively kind of suggest more clearly in the text that it's an alternate, it's one possibility of a Chrono Trigger future, not the thing that happened specifically. And I think that would be interesting. I think Chrono Cross is a beautiful game. I think it would benefit greatly from sort of revisiting it and trying again with a little bit more modern perspective.
Great answer, Rev. Great answer. Finn, you look like you had your hand up.
Yes, I don't know why I didn't think of it immediately. The answer is Blade Runner on PC because it deserves a remake so people can actually play one of the greatest adventure games ever made.
Yeah, there's not very many ways to play that now, right?
I don't think there's any.
There's none. There's exactly none.
Play it anymore?
You can do some crazy stuff to your computer to allow an emulator, the actual disc to run, I think, from last I heard. But
it's tough because it's tough to emulate too, right?
I mean, I own the physical game still, and I can't play it.
Ooh, that sucks. I'm sorry to laugh, dude, but that just sucks.
It's so good. Westwood Studios, I miss you.
Do you have anything you would change about it?
I would actually love. I would love if they added a epilogue scenario that time skip to Blade Runner 20. I'm blanking on the name.
49.
The sequel, 20 something something.
49.
2049. There we go. I would love to see what happens to all the characters in the world, Roy, and everyone during that movie. Because the first game took place concurrently with the original, with your character on his own mission, but coming across situations either before or after Decker did in the movie. And it was a really cool way to do a licensed game that didn't have the same problems of other licensed games, which was we have to just follow the plot of the movie and you play along with it. It was you're in the same world, your story is happening at the same time, but you're not actually playing through the movie Blade Runner. It's just taking place in that world. So I'd like to see them do an epilogue chapter with Blade Runner 2049.
Interesting. Great answer, dude. Justin.
I think this is a tough one, but one that I've been thinking about lately, I think, is the original Half-Life. Because I think it's over 20 years old at this point. Like, that's a 1998 ass game. But like, I think bringing it back, like, with a modern sensibility could be really cool, because there is that blend of puzzle solving, action, and horror that, you know, would be really unique, I think, and could be done a whole lot better and blended a whole lot better today. And I think it'd be really.
Well, you cut out real bad there, just at the end.
I stopped talking, and then nobody else said anything.
No, because
it's because you sounded like I thought you said "cool" as your last cut out, so I wasn't sure if you were done talking.
Yeah,
there are some spicy OG Nier opinions happening.
No, it's not spicy to think that OG Nier was an incredible game, John.
Pretty spicy.
I just want to throw out there, I've not played Nier. My knowledge of Nier is limited to a little bit that I understand from Nier Automata, and then reading a translation of the Nier book about Yoko Taro, where it tries to summarize the plot, but it's in translation, and I don't love the translation work in that book. Don't try to summarize the plot of all three Drakengard games and both Nier games in one go.
Yeah.
It's a bit challenging.
It's literally everything good that Nier Automata did, Nier did, other than gameplay. So
what do you think is more complicated to explain to somebody, the Drakengard Nier plotline or Kingdom Hearts?
Kingdom Hearts for sure.
All right, well, hold on. Before we even get down, Derek's to give his.
Oh yeah.
Before you even go down that rabbit hole.
Kingdom Hearts more complicated, Nier more weird.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll sign up. I'll endorse that.
So here's the thing. I got two that I cannot pick between.
Okay.
If I may be greedy. Shit. If I have to pick one, I'm gonna give Westwood some more love. And I would love to see Nox remade. Literally just more modern sensibilities. It's an old top-down kind of Diablo-like, but a little faster paced, very funny, very quirky and weird fantasy, like isometric action RPG. Just bring it back and update it in that like Diablo 1 to Diablo 3 kind of vein. It's great. It's funny. It's very creative. All three classes had completely different stories and campaigns, which was great. I mean, Westwood, miss you.
Right? Oh, Westwood,
yeah.
man.
So that's I mentioned Nox. Finn.
Okay.
Yeah, just update Nox in like the way that Diablo has been updated. Like, just give me Nox, or give me more of that would be good. Also remake Riven as a walking simulator.
That's the sequel to Myst, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Myst is a game I would love to see, like a full walking like a full 3D remake of. So we are kind of bumping up against our time here. We've got so many questions to answer. We can save some of these for next week, or we can save them for the morning podcast next week. But we'll go ahead and we will start to wrap it up here. Steve, this is like the third time you've been on, and you're more than just the COO to of AbleGamers does. You're a friend of all of us, and you're a very, very personal friend to me. And you were, as somebody who is abled, I hadn't really given much thought to the issue with accessibility in games until I met you. And I am not only incredibly thankful for that, I'm incredibly thankful for your friendship. And so, Steve, it's just such a blessing to have you on. And please come back again soon, man.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. It's always fun to get into fights against trolls with John on Twitter. And I look forward to you helping to carry a wheelchair up the 95 flights of stairs to KFG sometimes.
If you tell me, and I told Steve this in a DM, if we can find a way to get you out to San Francisco to get you on Kind of Funny, I will fly out there to help carry you up the stairs.
I can't wait for it to be a thing.
I will. I'm making a pledge right now.
I appreciate that. Yeah. No, it's always great to come back and hang out. The strange thing about my AbleGamers work is that it's always so serious, and it's a weird because the video games are a fun subject, but I often have to be very, very serious in it. And I think sometimes people are a little shocked when they see when I appear on a gaming podcast like this or my own streaming, because I'm super down with the dick jokes, and it's nice to do something else other than be serious.
You're on the right podcast, Steve.
I know. That's so I mean, where else do I get to talk about sandwiches being hot dogs? I appreciate that and the opportunity, and definitely we'll come back again if John's check clears from this time. We'll have to see.
Look at what Imran put in chat. Imran.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
I'm so proud of him.
Wow. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up here.
Yep.
Well, not really remind so much as announce we are going to do a community game night this weekend. I haven't quite decided what it's going to be, but I will put that out in the Discord tomorrow. And you can find Steven right there at Steve Spohn. He's spamming his Twitter handle right there. It is right there. You can find and please, if you can, check out their booth in the Diversity Lounge at all major PAX events. The AbleGamers booth, they do great work. Steve does great work. And does anybody have anything else before we sign off here?
Go ahead and spell out Steven's channels just in case people are listening and not watching.
Oh, right. No, that's a good point. So it's at Steven SPOHN. Steven
with a V.
Steven with a V. That's a good
correct way to spell it.
Steven with a V. Yeah, we don't fuck around with that PH stuff here. That's not how you. That's Stefan.
Exactly.
That's Stefan.
Thank you. That's why I like you. See, thank you.
Exactly. No, that's Stefan, not Steven. But if nobody has anything else, wait, hold on a minute. Imran says, remember that John ended the Smash last day. Okay, let's be clear. Let's be clear. Imran, we had been playing Smash for over an hour, like an hour and a half, and I was like, hey,
hour.
No, hold on now. Hold on.
La-ti-da.
I was like, okay, community game night. All right, guys. Everybody, thanks for coming. Have a great night. And then, as everybody was leaving, after I left, Imran joined the lobby.
I bet he could kick your ass.
He probably couldn't, Reb, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm pretty good at Smash. So let's do this. Fuck it. This weekend's community game night is Smash. It's going to be Smash. Imran, I will tell you what the time is. And you know what? You can even DM me, Imran, and tell me what day and time works best for you, and we will work around that, and I will be there.
$5 on Imran.
Kick his ass.
Fine. That's fine. Everybody can put their money on Imran if they want. That's perfectly acceptable to me. Okay? But Imran, send me a DM, and we will. Imran's taking bets right now. We will set up a time, and I'll even stream it. I'll even stream community game night. That's all I'm saying. Guys, we love everybody in chat. Thank you so much for showing up. And it's not always poetry, and we don't always agree, but we always keep it real. So until next week, please be kind to each other, have fun, and we'll see you later.